All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aidan Picard. Welcome to today's emerging practice session, which was conceptualized by Mr. Jordan Channer and is hosted in collaboration with CASA. These emerging practice sessions have been an ongoing set of events, with this one marking our final session. I would like to briefly thank Mr. Channer for his contributions. Our speaker for today will be architect Hugo Matthews. Mr. Matthews has 20 years of experience in the construction industry. He obtained an associate's degree in architectural science in 1999 and a Bachelor of Arts in Architecture in 2001 from the Caribbean School of Architecture at the University of Technology. He has worked at one of the largest civil engineering and construction companies in the world, Bouygues Travaux Publics, in their engineering design department. In 2009, he attained a master's degree in architecture and achieved significant academic performance in his endeavors. Without any further ado, I will now hand over to Mr. Matthews to begin his presentation.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Afternoon, Jordan and team. And thank you very much for inviting me to take part in the Emerging Practice lecture series. It's my pleasure to certainly do so wherever I can. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, we can hear.
Okay, great. I mean, wherever I can, I always like to participate in the development of young architects and also to bounce and share ideas with members of the fraternity. So thank you again for inviting me. And can I share my screen now?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Now you're seeing my screen, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if I have to admit persons once the presentation starts.
No, we'll take care of that on the end.
Okay. All right. Great. Okay. All right. Welcome again, everyone. Thank you for joining me on is this the final emerging practice lecture series? Personally, I want to thank Mr. Carrington. We had to do a switcheroo because I had an emergency in my family, so I should have been at the last one, Mr. Carrington. So I just want to thank him. I don't know if he's online, but I just like to thank him for stepping in and taking over where I could not. So without further ado, Hugo Matthews here from Virtuoso Architect, and this is just a snapshot into our firm, and just giving you some insights, what we are about and some of our projects, and let's just get right into it. Okay, so I've set this up in sort of 4 parts. Section 1 to introduce Virtuoso Architects. Section 2, just a bit of the journey, how we got to where we are, the different routes that we took, sort of to get to where we are. Section 3, we're just going to do some snapshots of a few of our projects. We can't fit all of them into it, but snapshots of a few of the projects. And I'll do just a small narrative of each one. I won't spend too much time on it, but just a quick narrative. And section 4, what I'm going to do is zoom in on one of our latest projects currently under construction and just go through some of the challenges, some of the design concepts, some of the decisions that we had to make as architects, and just the whole process of getting this one off the ground. So yeah. Introduction to Virtuoso Architect. So Virtuoso Architect was started in September 2014, and it was originally started by myself and my business partner Euhon Darling. And funny enough, the thing is about Virtuoso is it was conceptualized when we were in Caribbean School of Architecture. We both used to have sort of similar styles, and we sort of bounced ideas off each other constantly. And even from those days, we never had a name for it, so that came about years later. But we used to have this name that we used to sort of use, which was Concept Blue. Don't know where that came from, but that's sort of where it started, because we sort of had similar styles with how we like to execute our drawings and our designs and everything. So we always ended up tending to partner with each other on projects, and it sort of just stemmed from there. So I think the synergy between us two had always been very good. And though the personalities are very, very different, our design styles, and I think in a sense, we kind of complement each other. One of our the mantra that we like to use at Virtuoso is man is a part of nature. And we certainly think about that all the time in pretty much everything that we do. And I'm sure, you know, when we think about biophilic architecture, even though I don't have it listed in the little narrative that I have here, it's quite a bit of that we practice. My favorite architect at the time, and I've, you know, come to like other architects after. But my favorite architect at the time was Louis Barragan and Ricardo Legarreta, both Mexican architects. I just had a love for their form and how they balance the different volumes, and I just sort of enjoyed, in a sense, how they're able to carve out different features in their architecture. So that was what I always tended to do. So for me, I always love proportion, always love scale, always love that type of balance. Not necessarily one of the big principles, you know, in architecture is symmetry, but I was never really a big fan of it being dead symmetrical. But in a sense, just the balancing of different forms was always something that was interesting to me. Euhon's favorite architect at the time was Santiago Calatrava. Now that's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful architect, and I have grown to love his work. And there's a certain rhythm about his work, and just a certain almost a mechanical feature about it that was really wonderful. So I mean, I said that we have similar styles, but once you name the two architects, they're almost starkly different. But when they really get down into it, there are certainly a lot of similar features between the two. And you know, I think maybe it's the same sort of way myself and you were able to sort of vibe, and we're able to fix each other's work and enhance each other's work. So in a sense, that's just how it developed. So when we started with a team of, you know, let me jump back. I missed one person. So in the picture on the right there, it's myself, Euhon, and the third director is Mr. Sheldon Morris. He was also at Caribbean School of Architecture about 1 year ahead of us. And the story of Sheldon, I'll certainly jump into it after. All right, so when we started with 3 persons, myself, Euhon, and a very good teammate, and that we love so much, Mr. Sekou Samuels. He formed part of the original Virtuoso team. So myself, Euhon, and Sekou. And that's where we started, in Euhon's apartment on, well, I can't remember, what's the name of that road again? Lady Musgrave Road. And that's where we started, just a small entity. And that's where we started to create all that work. And we learned very, 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 very quickly that just design alone wasn't going to cut it. That we had to wear a lot of different hats. We couldn't just be designers alone. And what I remember is, I remember when I was working at a particular firm, and I had done a detail, which I thought was a great detail, but I was taken to task by the contractor, who let me know that the detail that I drew couldn't work. So it was very quickly that we realized that we had to start to wear many hats. We couldn't just be strictly architects alone in that sense of the word, but we had to be a little bit of the developer, a little bit of the end user, the client, the marketer, sometimes the realtor. We have to wear all of these different hats so we know exactly how to execute a project, and also what to expect at the end of a project. And it was a great learning curve, because we had to learn it very quickly. When you're in this business, I mean, the only way to be good is to be great. And we had to try to master as much of it as possible in a very, very short space of time. And it was very challenging. So during our sort of feeling out period and trying to figure it out, you know, we sort of started to carve out a little niche for ourselves within the industry. And, you know, in a sense, we do other types of architecture as well. But we started became known to do mid-rise to high-rise buildings, and that's okay, that's fine. but we can take you on a journey wherever you want to go, whether it's a tall building or whether it's something quaint. But it's something that we had to learn very quickly, and I'm happy that we're able to sort of throw ourselves into all aspects of it to get it going. So in 7 years, we grew from 3 to 13 persons. Sheldon Morrissey joined us within the last 3 years, and it was a way to take Virtuoso from one step to the next. Sheldon has a really wonderful design sensibility, very volumetric, and it certainly worked very well with the sensibilities that we already had. And you know, man is a part of nature, and we sort of want to work out not necessarily a virtuoso style, but a style of architecture that we can be proud of and can call it sort of like a Caribbean style based on all of the different things that we're putting together. So we grew from 3 persons to 13 persons. There's some images here of the team, you know. We have 3 directors, 2 senior architectural technicians, 4 junior architectural technicians, 1 junior technician, 1 drafting specialist, 1 office manager, and 1 accountant. I tell you, the office manager is extremely important because once the paperwork starts to roll, it's very, 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 very difficult to manage it. So we need persons like those to take the load off us so we can concentrate on just executing the work. Virtuoso is based in Kingston, sort of in the Crossroads area, close to New Kingston. And we have projects mainly in Kingston and St. Andrew, but we also have projects in St. James, St. Anne, Trelawney, Clarendon, and Portland. You know, maybe we can't get in all 14 parishes, but we're working towards it, and we're just trying to execute as best as possible. I know I spoke a bit about the journey already, but you know, the journey really starts at CSA, and this picture is just a wonderful picture. This picture is actually from our that's my business partner just running to the office, and he enjoyed this picture. This picture is from our CSA. I think it was our last study tour in Colombia. And we snapped this picture coming back after a successful study tour. It was really wonderful. So that's you one in the front here, and that's me all the way in the back. And this is the whole group of us, really, really wonderful persons. Quite a bit of our classmates are now architects in other countries. The gentleman in the front and center, he actually works in Jamaica in housing development. And it's just really wonderful to see everyone here just, you know, realizing the dream. So at CSA at the time, you know, we had to go through was the built environment. So you had to do BE1 and BE2. And then you moved on to architectural studies, which was AS3 and AS4. And then that's where you got your first degree. From there, we branched off and went out into the working world. Funny enough, myself and Euhon actually worked at 4 different places before we started Virtuoso. So when I left, when I got the Bachelor of Arts, I worked at Bouygues, which was not the first place I worked. I worked at a small company. Myself and Euhon worked at a small building outfit, if you want, for about 3 months, and we left there and went to Bouygues Travaux Publics, which is one of the largest construction companies in the world, probably still one of the largest construction companies in the world. I know they've branched off in a whole bunch of other things, but it was the time that they were doing Highway 2000, the first leg, and that experience, I think, to this day, their methods, the way how they operated, a lot of things that they did, how they were able to organize themselves, a lot of those methods that they did are still used to this day. I still have the documentation, and I still have the methods of how they put everything together. Because it's wonderful working for a large company like that, because they're working on thousands and thousands of drawings all over the world, and to find anything, it was a snap of a finger. So just the way how they operated was that work experience is something that you really can't replace. And they confused me for a while, because working in the engineering department, I got to love engineering, and I got to love being on site, and I got to love watching the surveyors do their work. I got to love looking at the roads and how those things developed from just bush to just, you know, these wonderful carriageways, you know, the bridges. They took us on the beam launch, and you're able to see how things are really put together, you know, things coming from one country, coming to the next country, being put together in different areas and coming together in Jamaica. So for a while, I was a bit confused whether I should continue, if I should actually do a master's in architecture, because I was thinking that maybe I would switch and I would do engineering instead. And it was one of the engineers, my good friend, said, you know, Hugo, in French, I know where I can mimic his accent, but what they did was when the Portmore Plaza was going to be built, he said, since you're having this confusion, why don't you work on that? Just focus on that alone and see if you still want to do engineering after. I think it was a good move, because it was in working on that toll plaza that I realized, you know, boy, they could have done this a little bit better. They could have done that a little bit better. This could have been placed here, you know, and I started to love architecture again. I don't think I fell out of love with it. I just started to really fall in love with engineering. And I think maybe that's what confused me a bit. So I went, and after I worked there for about 4 or 5 years. Euhon had left before that, and went to work at other architecture firms. But I stayed right up until I just entered straight into the Masters of Architecture program. Once that was completed, I worked at a number of other architecture firms. Plexus was one, Mode Limited was one. So I worked at those 2 firms, soaking up as much knowledge as I could, because in my mind, you know, the only thing that I wanted was to start Virtuoso. And Euhon actually worked at Mode with me, as well as another architecture firm. And we, at the end of that period, when I was able to sit the exams, we decided that this is the time, let's do it. We didn't have any money, and it was just a dream. And I made a video of the last day of when I was leaving my job, and I was wondering to myself, how is this going to work? But we just took a step, and we just started. So we're just going to run through some snapshots of some projects, and then I'll get into our focus project. So these are our completed projects over the time span. So everybody, this was one of our first projects, one of our first major projects, which was 20 South. This building it's 10 stories officially, but it's 11 stories. And at the top of the halo is about 13 stories high. So it was a really wonderful project for us. And in a sense, it started sparked, well, it was controversial, to say the least, when we started it. And you know, it started the conversation about densities in Kingston. And just 2 or 3 months ago, I actually did a presentation in the changing skyline in Kingston, and you know, spoke about how the Kingston skyline is being changed, and densities, and you know, how it is that we can densify effectively. So I think 20 South Avenue was actually one of the first, and first to spark that conversation in a real way. It's another view of it at the time. You know, I mentioned before about man is a part of nature. The thing is, what we try to do in all of the buildings, and as much as we can, we try to do it, is we try to bring in as much nature as possible. So even in tall buildings, yes, it's dense, but you try to bring different sensibilities inside. And what we decided to do is cut a massive hole through the center of the building, and you know, create some parks and the restaurants. We actually wanted to create more green space, but a lot of design in the real world is dictated by the client and the want to profit as much as possible. So sometimes you want to manage the client's enthusiasm as much as you can. But that's always kind of difficult to do at times, but as much as we can, we try to bring in real reason within the minds of the client, to ensure that the building itself is something that people enjoy. That's another snapshot of 20 South, that balcony area with you know, persons enjoying the space. One of the things about 20 South that was really nice is that we decided to make all the corridors much wider than normal, you know, 8, 9, 10 feet, and the units not as big. there was some backlash with that, but it was a conscious decision to make the units a little smaller and the entertainment space is much wider, because that's really what we wanted to do. Just two shots of the interior spaces of 20 South. This is our second, well, it's not really second. This was about the third or fourth building that we had done at the time, but this is Parkhurst One. And it's not as large as 20 South, but still has some of the same sensibilities. This is 8 stories high, and it's just behind 20 South in the Half a Tree area. And all of this was done because, as you know, the push to densify Kingston, and we're not really afraid of it, and we like to talk policy. You know, this was our second or third project. This project was also very unique and dear to us. This is the Usain Bolt building in Half a Tree, and this was completed 2 years ago. 2 years ago, and this is a BPO, building process outsourcing building, and you know, this went through a number of different concepts. At the same time, you know, you want to get as much bringing the outside in as possible, while at the same time, you know, the building is 60,000 square feet, 6 stories high, and the client wants to maximize his profit margin. So sometimes, as I said, we have to wear the hat of the developer, we have to wear the hat of the end user, and we have to just try to create things that has a good balance. Another building process outsourcing building. This is in Montego Bay. This is Fairfield site. Another wonderful building. It came out even better than expected. We're able to create those vistas in the building. Yes, that you know, clients want to not have as much balconies, and you know, you have to push against it sometimes to create some balconies, because not every single thing can be spaced. So the building must breathe. So we have to, you know, we have to do what we must and do what we can to ensure that we can bring some shape, some form, and some enjoyment to the structures. This is Fontana Pharmacy, and this was quite controversial at the time, because it's on the grounds, it's on the cholera grounds, and it caused quite a spark, and we had to have a lot of meetings to get this project off the ground. The property was privately owned, but you know, there was a lot of concern by the public when it was advertised that it was slated for development. So we had to have a lot of town meetings, and you know, and we had to meet with the Ministry of Health, I believe. We had to invite the Ministry of Health to the meetings, just to give persons the clarity and the understanding that they didn't have to be worried about cholera somehow coming up out of the ground and infecting persons. So it took us a while, but we're really happy with the execution. Again, there's some push and pull that you have to do. The end user, there are certain things that you have to consider there. The client, the developer, there's a certain amount of financial gains that needs to be had, and we have to manage how their money is being spent. And there's just a lot of back and forth with the project, but at the end of the day, I think it turned out really well. And you know, client was happy, and a lot of the end users have been very happy as well. These are some interior shots of it. So this is one of our recently completed projects. This project was completed in June of this year. It was practically complete in June of this year, and it's going to be fully complete, you know, after defects, liability period, and those things in December. So this project is, I think, is a really wonderful, quaint project. It's in the Ligani Barbican area, and you know, it consists of townhouses and a small apartment complex, apartment block. So it's what we really try to do with this one is we wanted to give it a modern feel, but we wanted to have a lot of texture, a lot of timber texture, a lot of stone texture, and we wanted it to sort of be traditionalist, traditional, you know. So we wanted to create those shaders, sort of cooler boxes, and just sort of give it a sort of modern vernacular style. And I think we're quite happy with how it turned out. This is just another shot of it, and that's the apartment block that you're looking at at the end of the driveway. Another really wonderful project. This project was finished maybe a year and a half ago. This is well close to Campion College, Hopefield Avenue, and just a really, we're very happy with how it turned out again. It's a small project, very quaint, and just the different shapes and form, and just the juxtaposition of the timber with the timber with the stone, the tiling, and I think and even just the shape of the roof as well, you know, just to create that little pattern with the one by one buttons at the top of the roof. I think it was just a really wonderful take on a modern vernacular style. And we experimented with color a lot. It was the first time we were using this sort of plum, it's a light plum color. And I think just the way how it came together was just really wonderful. And the clients were extremely happy with it. Just gonna jump into some projects under construction right now. Some are further than others. This is Spyglass Hill. This is in the Barbican area, top of the hill there, Tavistock. So it consists of apartments and townhouses. A very dramatic project, and I can't wait to see what I can't wait to see the end result. We know it's going to be really dramatic, and you know, pushing the envelope sometimes is something that we like to do, and really just not afraid to do it. This is another view of Spyglass Hill. This is now looking at the townhouses. The townhouses are the element that is on the front of the hill, and the apartments are towards the back. For the most part, we did a lot of side sections, because what we're trying to do is the apartments are 6 stories, but we wanted to position them in a way that from the road you won't be able to see them in the back, only the townhouses. So it climbs up the hill quite dramatically. But what you'll see is you'll see the townhouses, which are 2 stories, but you won't see the apartments towards the back. So it took us a lot of leveling and meeting with the engineers and just trying to really work this thing through, because one, we didn't want to overpower the neighbors, number one. So the townhouses flank the edges. So the townhouses are what is against the neighbor's boundary, while the apartments are about 80 feet away from the boundary. And from the road edge, you won't be able to see the apartments because it will be hidden against that slope. It will be hidden behind the townhouses. What we also try to do is to try to make the colors natural. What we did was we took some photographs. We looked at the combination of green on the hill, and that's what we use to generate the colors. Yes, the colors may change at the end of the day, but this was the original concept, and I think we're able to, for a massive project, we're able to sort of nestle it into the hillside. This is a very dramatic view. This is the project, so you can really have an idea of what just the scale of it, you know. But at the end of the day, once everything is finished and complete, we know that it will be exactly what we want. This is our project that I'll be focusing on today. This is Belmont One, and this project is located in New Kingston, and it's currently under construction. So another view of it. This project is Wellington project, currently under construction, slated to be finished in about another 4 months. It is a multifamily residential complex consisting of 2 towers, and it's 6 stories high with basement level parking. Again, we sort of cut the building in 2 and created sort of like a forest running in between. So again, we try to, you know, bring the outside in, but not just that. It's really about trying to create meaningful spaces in the body of the building itself. This is one of our massive projects in St. Anne, and this is Buckfield. It's a commercial center. Lots of structure on this one, and just working with steel in a steel building is a whole other kettle of fish. and it provides its own challenges. This is a project which will be located in Montego Bay. It's called Racket Club, and it's a mixed-use building. One of our, well, probably one of the only mixed-use buildings that we have right now. So it's apartment complex. It's 8 stories high, and it will consist of spas, gyms, shops, and other features. So it is Racket Club, and it's going to be located in Montego Bay. All right, so let me just jump into the feature project, which is Belmont One, which is a commercial office project. So let me just jump into just a bit of overview, and then I'll just run through. So initially, Belmont was envisaged as a mixed use, consisting of both apartments and commercial offices. After the first design concepts and value engineering, the project changed to commercial only. Part of the reason is, by this time it's COVID time, we're thinking about dollars and cents numbers. Apartments are more expensive to execute than commercial spaces because you can do them as shells. So once we looked at all of that, return on investment, it made sense after much meetings to change it to a commercial only. The design concept is to maximize views, even though the project is slightly skewed. It is essentially aligned on the east-west. So the long side of the project is on the east-west, which is not really what we want, because we know about climate and we know about sun angles and all of these things. So it's not the most ideal situation, but we didn't really have a choice as to how the building would be positioned. So we had to use some strategies to mitigate against solar heat gain. So we utilize shaders in various areas along with where we have to use up the technology. So we have double glazed laminated glass in between argon gas. The thickness of the glass, the total thickness of the glass, about 1 inch thick, and that effectively reduces the solar heat gain, and also it's very good against sound. So essentially, the building is sealed and mostly artificially cooled by the climate, but the skins that we put on the building and the juxtaposition of the different forms and even the rhythm of the shaders that we put on, a lot of the sun angles will be blocked out. So along each face of the building, just because of the position of the form, will create shade on maybe 50% of the face of the building. As I mentioned before, COVID, this is a building that was in COVID and it almost didn't go ahead. But the clients took the chance and it's something that they really wanted to do. And so what we wanted to do is make it future-proof as much as we can. So we had to change a lot of the system. So now we have all the doors are touchless. The AC operates automatic. Lighting controls are all automatic. So as much as touchless as it can possibly be, it is how we're going to execute. Instead of just AC systems, you're going to have your return air systems, so fresh air systems will be in place. Those solar panels are not part of the initial phase of the project. The infrastructure will be put in, and that can happen over the life of the building. So the building is located in New Kingston. Those are a couple of snapshots. Now the good thing, it's on Belmont Road, and Belmont Road connects 2 major arteries. So you have Oxford Road and Trafalgar Road. So Belmont Road, a lot of cars traverse this avenue. So this is an opportunity for us. As I said, Virtuoso is a company that we like to be bold as much as we can. So being on Belmont Road, we thought that this is an opportunity to make the building as bold as possible. We're going to have a lot of vehicular traffic up and down this one, especially connecting Oxford to Trafalgar. So this is an opportunity for the client to make a bold statement, and for us to also make a bold statement. So this is a snapshot of the road. And the curious thing about the road that we thought is, for such a road, none of the buildings seem to want to take advantage of just being front and center. So this was a glorious opportunity to really stand out, and we didn't even have to work that hard to do it because the other buildings weren't really doing it. So this is certainly a place where we want to break the mold. So we're not going to do what the other buildings did. We're going to break the mold, and we're going to come front and center, and we're going to stand up tall. So the red line dictates the site, which is essentially two sites in one, and the white line is the setback that we're using. This is just the actual survey, so it shows you what was on the site, and the red line again shows us where we're going to position the building. So the area of the site is 1.02 acres. The total building size is, well, this is approximate. It's 185,000 and change square feet, 17,000 and change square meters. The floor area ratio for this building is 4:1. We have 9 floors, and we have 4 parking levels and 5 commercial levels, and as well as a roof amenity space. As you know, the calculation for parking is especially for commercial is quite a bit. So, you know, we have to ensure that we can take care of all of the parking efficiently and effectively, and not take away much from the building, because all the parking is on site. So essentially the building, the ground floor, basement level, and the parking levels, they maximize the site. You know, we push right against the boundaries to maximize the site. We don't want a basement that is totally sealed. So what we had to do was we came off the edges and create some light wells, some air wells going down into the basement levels, so that, you know, it's not just a basement that cannot breathe. You know, we want to ensure that the basement level cars down their exhaust. We want to ensure that the air can move through effectively. What's important, I know some students are on the stream. What's very important when you're setting structures out, especially when you have parking to consider, is that you have to ensure that you have a proper grid. So your grid spacing must be such that the parking can happen, and that your spans aren't too long. So what we have is we have a 26-foot span on the long side, and we have, you know, different spans on the shorter edge. But those 26-foot spans ensure that we have 3 parking spaces between each of those. And that is very effective for setting up the parking and also setting up a structure. So you have to be very mindful when you're doing that, so that you don't have to do a lot of structural gymnastics when you have to come on top of a parking structure. I just jumped to the second floor because I wanted to sort of show the outline of the building itself, the building contracts. And the building contracts at the commercial levels, and it expands where the parking is now. This is not something that we thought of initially when we were doing the design, but in a sense, it started to feel like, and a business partner suggested it, that it felt like a harpy eagle with its wings spread out and a center spine. So, you know, sort of play with that idea. This is the basement level, and it's interesting to focus on. There's a lot of challenges in buildings, and in Jamaica, the requirement is that, and I circle these areas for a particular purpose because I wanted to highlight it. In Jamaica, for safety, the escape stairs must not go down to basement. It has to be separate stairs that go down to basement. So I highlighted the core here. So you have the 2 stairs at either side. Those 2 stairs, they only go from ground floor to basement. But the other floors terminate at ground floor, and they don't run all the way through to the basement level. I have a little 2-minute video that I'd love to play. So let us run through some images, interiors, and I think this is the video. So we have a little 2-minute video of the project. So that's it. Thank you.
All right. Sorry about that time crunch at the end there,
No
Hugo.
problem at all. It's fine.
But I appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us for the conversation. I want to open it up for questions at this point. First, I want to open it up for student questions. If there are any students who want to ask questions, please go ahead. So I see Adrian Russell.
Yes, Mr. Jnr. Good afternoon, everybody. Mr. Matthew, just one question, especially as it relates to Belmont. How has the rise of MEP affected the architectural design process here specifically?
The rise of what?
MEP.
MEP?
Yeah, the services.
Oh, let me tell you, we've always been very cognizant of the services. So to be honest, it's not really a rise in MEP because all of these tall buildings require a lot of services. So it's every project that we work on, we get a little bit better at it. You have different systems that come out and things which are more efficient. So what we do is with everything that we do, we start to create the areas that the systems need to occupy. You need to have the shafts moving up through each floor. You need to be able to transition in the ceiling, and you need to have efficient spaces that that can take the MEP, all the MEP services, whether it's fire suppression, fire detection, whether it's solar systems, water supply systems, all of the AC, HVAC, central air, all of these things have always been there. And you know, it's just that every project that we do, we just get a little bit more cognizant of the need and the placement of it. So to answer your question, it has always been there. It's just that we're getting a little bit more familiar with the requirements of each service.
All right, thank you.
Jessica.
Hello, good afternoon. All right. So thank you again, Mr. Matthews, for your presentation. I don't necessarily have a question. I just wanted to talk about the fact in your presentation in the earlier part, you mentioned and I appreciate that you mentioned that when you were in CSA, you had a moment where you were seeking or you were more interested in engineering. And I wanted to take a point on that because there's a lot of students in here, and I understand that sometimes during the course, you might lose a grip of your passion, lose a grip of what you love. And nothing is wrong with that. Once you get to step away, do something else, and you get to figure out yourself, you can always find yourself, regardless of what year you're in, what you're doing. So I wanted to say thank you once more for mentioning that.
Most welcome.
And there's a question in the chat from Miss Duncan. And I would love if you could address it. But thank you. Question related to density.
Yeah, she asked, how do you advance density when there's not the equal level of investment in public space and public transportation to support denser population?
Okay, that's a very good question. As I said, I did a presentation about 2 months ago, speaking specifically about densifying Kingston, and that I am for it. The thing is this: Kingston doesn't necessarily have the infrastructure to densify as you wish, but it has to be rolled out in a very systematic way. So I had some conversations with NEPA planning agencies, and how they wanted to roll it out is they wanted to roll it out from downtown, and they come up, the Cargill lands, New Kingston, and those areas. The taller buildings would start in those areas. So those are the places that you want to start to put infrastructure. Now, how they do it is Since the infrastructure isn't all over, but there's infrastructure in some places. So what they're doing is they're using the corridors, the main corridors that has the infrastructure, and they want to roll it out against those corridors first. So you're talking about half a tree areas, I think half a tree, Constant Spring, well, they just did the new line in Constant Spring coming all the way down. So they want to roll it out in those areas first. It can't go everywhere, not right now. So the infrastructure has to come in. So it has to be a systematic way how it's done. And the thing is with densifying urban areas is that it's just good economies of scale. You know, instead of servicing, Kingston in general is a single family place. And you imagine sending services up a street and you're doing one family home, another family home. But imagine doing the service and you have an apartment complex where you have 80 persons serving. The economies of scale on that. For the utility companies, it's better for them. They're able to do more. So in that regard, it's such a good thing. But they have to do it in the right way. They can't just put it everywhere where where the infrastructure cannot reach. So they have to do it systematic over a period of time in order to get it to work properly.
Just to hop on this, because I'm very passionate about public space, especially in Caribbean countries. You know, even with the corridor in along Constant Spring, it's not a walkable space. There's no infrastructure for bikes. There's no, you know, Jamaica is a hot place. There's no, you know, shade infrastructure for, it's not walkable, right? I think that's what Dorian was getting at. Where are the public space investments that are going to be necessary when you bring a lot of people into a place? Because you bring all these people, and if they have to have cars to access this density, then it doesn't quite work out. It's car focused, but increasing the amount of cars. So that's the
Yes, no, I totally agree. And those are the conversations we have to have with the policymakers, because the fact of the matter is private development going to do it? Maybe not. It has to be a partnership between public and private, and some incentive has to be there for the private investor to come in and create those park spaces. And they're absolutely needed, but that conversation has to happen with policymakers.
okay. Gonna open it up to Chrisanne Campbell.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Mr. Matthews, thank you so much for your presentation. It was very interesting to see how you speak about your designs with such passion, and you know everything, and that's really nice to see how you present that. Very inspiring. The question I had was for the spyglass. When you got that piece of land, what was the driving force behind the design that you guys went with?
Okay, that's a very, let me see if I can answer it. Let me see if I can answer it properly. Okay, so remember when I said that a lot of the designs that we do, we have to wear a lot of different hats. And the size of the property was, I think, over 5 acres. And the client at the time was really interested in doing a development. You know, he wanted to do a development on the hill like that. But we had to do it in a way that it couldn't just be apartments alone. You know, it couldn't be apartments alone. So what we had to do is we had to temper it a bit. We had to reduce the amount of apartments and bring in some townhouses and flank the edges of the borders, the boundaries, to sort of get a sort of low density sensibility, even though it is quite dense. So it was actually just a back and forth between ourselves and the clients, and it is really a return on investment. You know, we had to wear that developers hat a little bit, we had to wear the marketers hat a little bit, and then we had to wear quite a large architect's hat, because we had to do it in a way that wasn't going to overpower the area. I mean, it's a big project, and you know, we had to try to marry those things very sensibly. You know, and there's some engineering challenges as well. So we have to overcome those engineering challenges in order to get the project to almost feel like it's a really wonderful and cozy residential complex.
Okay, thank you so much.
Great. Still open to student questions. If there are no more, I want to open to the professional world. If anyone has a question they want to ask Hugo, now's a good time. Use the raise hand function to ask questions.
Hi, Hugo. It's Jackie Ann. How you doing?
Hi, how are you? I'm good.
Great to see you. I just want to say that this series by the CASA group, and I just want to big up Bonita Bart and the team. They've been doing an excellent job, and it's great to see alumni like Jordan Chana coming back and dedicating so much time, generous time to the group to support, knowledge to the next generation. So I want to say this is the second piece of the second one I think I've been able to sit in on. So it's positive, real positive stuff. But I wanted to ask, are you an emerging practice? Would you consider yourself, or are you an established practice? That's the first question. And then I just want to, we're all looking at COP26 and all the global agendas that are coming out this week. And it's a really serious time for building. We know from UNEP, who has reported that building and construction is responsible for about 36% of the global energy consumed. So that's 40% of energy CO2 emissions. Your buildings, the buildings that have been put up in Kingston by Virtuoso are mostly concrete and steel. So how are you addressing that concern?
Okay, let me take your first question. I asked myself that question as well, as I was putting this presentation together. Am I emerging or am I there? Personally, I think I'm still emerging because there's a lot of things that we want to do as a firm that we haven't done as yet. So we're still up and coming, even though we've done some good work over that time span. Your second question is actually a very good one. Construction in Jamaica, and maybe construction in the Caribbean, for that matter. It is concrete and steel. We're trying to put up tower buildings. It's concrete and it's steel. And a lot of these things you have to ship from overseas. There's a steel building that we've just done where you have to actually ship that from overseas. So you have the energy. You have that energy that is going to you're going to expel. But what can we do to mitigate against that? What we're trying to do is we want those buildings to be efficient as possible after the fact. Once the building goes up, a lot of the energy happens after the fact. So what you want to do is we want to try to reduce the amount of energy you're going to need to cool this building down. We want to try to reduce the amount of paint and repaint that you have to do to these buildings. And we try to put new materials in place. And we suggest a lot of new materials to put in place so that you don't have to expend that extra energy to repaint and clean and all these things. So you want to try to make the buildings as efficient as possible. And quite a bit of the work that we've been doing of late and some research that we have been doing along with some other partners is to try to find out new building materials. So we've been in touch with some companies out of Canada who has some new construction methods that, well, we haven't done it as yet, but we plan to do a project on it, and we're negotiating to do a project using the new system, which reduces energy by 30%, reduces cost by 30%, and increases the speed of the construction. So everything that we do, we have to always evolve. And, climate is certainly important to us, and everything that we do in the long run is also important. So changing the technology and how we construct is something that is on the forefront of Virtuoso's mind.
That's nice to hear. Just the last word, listen, wood is the new old gold. Wood skyscrapers going up now. Something to think about.
Yes, no, I've been reading on it. It's very interesting. Again, I think that is pioneered. I think that's pioneered out of Canada as well. And I've been reading articles on it as well.
Great.
Just to jump in on that, the Caribbean load on the sort of carbon footprint of the world is really very low. And I think instead of, this idea of mitigation, we should really be focusing on adaptation. That's a question for later. I just want to open it up to Suzette Adams-Rickards, who has a question.
Thanks, Jordan. Hi, Hugo.
Thank you.
It's nice to see all the work that you guys have been doing. It's pretty inspirational and good, I think, for the time frame that you guys have been practicing as well. My question isn't anything close to what Jackie asked. It's fairly simple. But so I've seen a lot of work locally. How are you guys with regards to working regionally? Do you have anything, any projects in other Caribbean islands? And if not, what are your plans to kind of expand out?
Okay, excellent question. We have done conceptual work in other Caribbean islands. We almost executed a project in Guyana, but we did all of the concept work. We did all of the renders, but it was a technicality. You know, it was a hotel, and they had a particular architect that they used, and so we were only able to do the original concept work. But we still have, you know, we're still forming bonds with different persons, both in the States and in other Caribbean islands, and we're looking forward to expand our footprint from Jamaica to our other Caribbean islands. That's definitely something that we want to do.
Good, thanks.
You're welcome.
Hey, Hugo. How are you? It's Terramore. All right. On the side, I'm happy with the work. For an emerging practice question would be, what's collections like? Do clients pay on time? Can architect feed their family?
Yes. All right. So
or do they have to
architects,
store food like a grizzly bear or
you have to do a little bit of both. You have to do a little bit of both. Some client, all right, to be real with you, out of every 10, one. Out of every 10 persons who come to us for a project, one takes off, you know. So we do a lot of work, and we have a certain method how we approach new work. But out of 10% is what we land. We land 10% of everything that comes through. So you have to manage well, and you have to get your metric well. You know, you have to, you know, when I say the office manager, very important, because once we execute a design, we collect at a stage. So we ensure that we produce something at a stage, and we ensure to try to get those things out as quick as possible, because if you're not getting them out, you're not getting paid, you know. So we have the 5 stages that we work with, and at the end of every stage, we have to get those drawings out. We create a package at the end of each stage, and we send those things out. So schematic stage, we send that out. Design development stage, we send that out. We send out packages in order to get paid, because you cannot sit too long on any one project, because you're not going to get paid.
All right, thank you, man.
Very welcome, man.
Great work and good luck.
Thank you.
All right, guys. It looks like we're over time. If anyone wants to ask another question, I'll open it up for the last question and maybe one after that, if people want to stay around. So, yeah, open for one more question for Hugo.
Sorry, Mr. Jnr, I think there are a couple questions in the chat that you could probably use for that time.
Okay. I see Arlene asked, what have you found to be most effective for focusing the project when working through the early design phase with a client?
Okay. Well, what is very important is to get a design brief. Ensure that they're clear in their mind what they want. You have to get a very detailed brief from them. A lot of times they'll say, I have a piece of land, I want some apartment, and that's it. That's not enough. You have to get a very detailed brief. So we create a form and send to them and say, fill this out. So you have to get a very detailed brief. You have to ask them, all right, so, you know, let them tell you with pictures what the look and feel of it is what they want. Don't listen to modern or Mediterranean, because what they say is modern or Mediterranean is going to be something different from what you think. Or let me say it again. what they say is modern and what they say is Mediterranean or classical is going to be something different than you know because you learned it. So what you know as modern and what you know as Mediterranean and Tuscan and all is going to be different from what they are thinking. So ensure that they give you as much information as possible. Once you have that information, the very next thing that you need to do is, right off the bat, you have to ask them budget. What is your budget? Because persons that we find is they don't understand the cost to build. So what they want to do usually far exceeds what they can do, and they have to get that. You have to get that very early. So once you're able to get that very early, the design phase, the actual design part of it gets a lot simpler. You're not going so far left and so far right. You're right where you need to be, right in the middle. And that makes life a whole lot easier. You have to get them to tell you exactly what they want, describe it properly, send you some images, know what the budget is or what they're working, and then you will tell them what they can get.
Great. Well, I think we're gonna wrap up unless there's any more questions. I want to thank you, Hugo, for joining us. On this last, sorry.
One question. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Zain.
This may be a general question, and I'm not sure if it's a little too personal. As a firm like Virtuoso, who is getting a lot of commissions right now, and a lot of investors and developers coming to you guys, how do you manage to stabilize that and like have a continuous flow of income coming into, for example, pay employees and your work staff, for example?
All right, you have to be efficient and smart. You have to be able to distill very quickly. What if I can say this? You have to distill very quickly paying clients, and you sort of have to know. And it took us a while to figure it out because we got caught a couple of times where you end up doing a lot of work for no money, and you stress out. So what you have to do is you sort of have to, and it may come with experience. Maybe you have to make the mistake. But it comes with a bit of experience where you're gonna have some developers who will come to you all the time with all your projects. That's great. You have those repeats. You take care of them. Take care of your repeat clients always. New clients are great, but once you take care of the ones that are your bread and butter, that way you know that this payment is set for this time period, and you keep your fingers crossed with new clients. But take care of your bread and butter first, and you have to sort of distill the clutter from potential new clients that you've never worked with before. So do some due diligence, ask some questions. Don't be afraid to ask some questions. Get some references, but you have to be able to distill and know who is serious, because you're gonna have a lot of persons who come to your doorstep who are not serious, and you're gonna end up doing a lot of work for nothing.
Okay, thanks for that. Informative.
All right. And on that note, again, thank you, Hugo, so much for joining us. I feel like we got a lot of lessons in density, infrastructure, running a business, the whole gamut of your story from CSA to now. So really want to thank you for putting so much into this this presentation for the students, for the professional community. This is the last in the series, and I feel like I've learned a lot. I just returned to Jamaica not too long ago, and this was a good chance for me to get reacquainted with the with the architectural culture here. And I feel like this series really brought everything together for me, and I hope it was equally as useful for students, for teachers, for the professional world. And I hope we can keep these connections with Irina, with Dean and you, and break across these barriers that that were man-made centuries ago. I want us to think of each other as a community, as a Caribbean community, think more regionally, and also focus on the specific, issues on the ground in Jamaica. So again, thank you so much for making this happen. Thanks to all of our emerging practices that helped this go very smoothly and work out. Thank you, Bonita, Aiden, Matthew, all of CASA for helping to put this together. I know this one was particularly hard. Chris is around the corner, and you guys really came out. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining as well. I feel like the Caribbean community really came out regionally, in Jamaica, globally as well, to really see the work that architects are doing in the Caribbean to push development, infrastructure, and the sort of social culture in the country forward. So again, thank you, Hugo. Appreciate it.
Very welcome. Thanks everybody for joining. Much appreciated.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Take care, all.